NYXL against London, Houston, Boston. These are massive games.
I feel bad for you. Yeah, because you're going to be here all day. Lots of coffee.
That's great. So is the crowd.
That's true. So is the crowd, and you guys are amazing. That's right. You guys are awesome. We got a beautiful crowd here today. But let's go ahead and take a look at the league standings and see what is going on. Because right now, the Excelsior, NYXL, living at the top, 8-1. London Spitfire sitting there at second place. The LA Valiant, their hopes and dreams rest on the results of today, which is a very scary thought to not be in control of your own destiny, but it is going to be exciting. Let's look at the schedule here. I touched on it before at the start of the show. Let's go ahead and lay it out for you one more time. So we got the NYXL versus the London Spitfire. That's our first matchup. Then the Houston Outlaws take the stage against the Boston Uprising. That is going to be an exciting matchup. And every single game in the Overwatch League matters, especially this one for Florida and Philly, because you want to make sure you get that W. It adds on to the end of the season, and you want to make it to the overall playoffs, right? So, you know, it's going to be great matches, and I'm really psyched for this one. But first, the playoffs, how it's going to work. So at 5 o'clock, hopefully, we are going to have the number 3 seed facing off against the number 2 seed. Then, following that matchup, the number 1 seed sits nice and pretty at the top as they watch the 3 and 2 seeds battle it out. And then after that, they have to do it again and try and get that crisp 100K grand prize, you know, a little bit of a performance bonus. There's going to be some money on the line. But for now, let's go into our first matchup of the day, and let's introduce your first team. Put your hands together for the NYXL.
Yeah, they were able to protect their strats against Florida on Thursday. They feel the Pine has played a very straightforward standard game. You kind of know what to expect if they have Pine in the lineup. Likely, they did not have to split their practice time and mainly focus on their match against the London Spitfires. I can't wait to see what they have in store for us today.
Yes, and Pine isn't in the starting lineup for this first match, but you know that the style of this team is going to be similar. They play around those supports, Ark and Jonak. When you look at the statistics of the kills in across all teams, NYXL will have the highest percentage on their supports. Jonak drags out. And then you've got the man right there, Sabiorbi, who man-marks the enemy DPS and shuts them down. And the tank line as well, this team is well-rounded.
That's exactly it. You have 2 DPS that are focused around disrupting the opposing DPS, but then the support role, just because the hero Zenyatta lends itself to being able to deal so much damage. That guy on your screen right there, his accuracy is just bonkers, and so he relies as a third threat, and it becomes that much more difficult for any team to deal with this team because of how much power is in their arsenal.
And this team is the current Kings of the Mountainside show, sitting at 8-1. They are number 1 in the Atlantic Division, number 1 in the overall league, and they're looking to clinch that number 1 spot going into the playoffs. But now it's time to introduce their opponents. Let's give them a warm welcome as well for the London Spitfire. So, in that Houston game, we saw London struggle a little bit. What is going on here?
Is that a top hat?
It is.
That's for you. That's for your guys' show.
They've instantly won me over. This is if they weren't before, this is now my favorite team. Oh, Candice Stylosa. They've won their metagame immediately, so early on.
For the Queen. I love it. I love it.
But they did have a struggling game against Houston yesterday. They're not coming into this unbeaten.
Absolutely not, right? They went in a 3-1 series that was kind of unexpected, and I'm sure they're looking for a really anticipated rematch, but this team has to be feeling like they've got something to prove. 7-2, knowing that they can be the very best. It's all a matter of just showing up right now.
Yeah, they really struggled against Jake's Junkrat yesterday, and I feel like Coolman had all the room he needed to get behind onto their supports. When you look at the starting roster that's being unveiled before you, you'll notice that Hagapyun and Closer, their 2 supports from yesterday, have been switched out with Nus and Badoshin. So I feel like this was an area that they've had to bulk up, and they're making some changes coming in.
Yeah, but it has such a stacked lineup. They have been mixing and matching their 2 separate squads, and I asked them if they still have something like an A-team or like a better lineup, a main lineup, and this is what their coach Bishop replied. He said, "We are the A-team, every single one of us." He didn't use caps lock, but dramatic punctuation, and that projects even more confidence, if you ask me.
Well, that is why we say this team has some of the best players all around, right? 12 members that all legitimately can be A-team players on any other team.
This team, actually, both of these teams just have such stylistic differences, though, right? New York, we've heard it all throughout the season. They like to take the dive, right? They like to play a little bit more defensively. And then London, I mean, they could throw a million looks at you, but they do like to play aggressively. Do you think that this is going to play into London's hand because they're expecting New York to be a little held back?
It's so difficult to tell, actually, in my opinion, because we know how they usually like to play, but when you have these two juggernauts playing against each other, it comes down to the coach's strategy and the counter plays. So if you expect New York to be playing defensive, do London anticipate some kind of swap for them? So we don't know what kind of look London are going to throw into this one because they have such depth to their roster, like Zoe was saying, that they can just swap it out all the time.
That's very scary. But the playoff scenarios, Crumbs, we got to talk about this because they're like, math is hard, okay? I'm not very good at mathematics, and there's going to be a lot of math right here because, Crumbs, you're going to get to explain it. How does this all work? Because the Valiant are waiting on results from the Houston-Boston game, but this matchup also has implications for the playoffs.
Right, so the important thing to remember is that, again, it's win-losses in every single map. So it's not just whether you win, that's your map differential. And what the London Spitfire cannot afford to do is drop this series in an 0-4 fashion. Otherwise, it will be completely out of the picture. But we are resting on Boston and Houston to be playing that last game so that they can go to 7-3. And whether their map differential will take over anybody else in the top 3 standings, they will then advance to the money matches.
That is crazy.
It's amazing.
We got a big point.
It's amazing to think that London Spitfire at the moment look like either the #1 or #2 team, like depending on who you ask. But if they lose 0-4 here, which is a genuine possibility,
Yes,
this is two juggernauts going up against each other. If they lose 0-4, they'll be out of the playoffs. They'll be in 4th place, and the Valiant will overtake them. That is crazy to me.
Yeah, so if New York wins, they're the #1 seed.
Correct.
If London wins by 2 maps, they're the #1 seed.
Correct.
If London is eliminated by an 0-4 loss.
That's correct. Quiff maths, everyone.
Quick
You nailed
math.
it.
Quick math, baby.
Great.
Listen, the New York public education system has not failed me today, people. Oh, boy. All right, well, I guess not much really more to break down besides some cheeky predictions.
Yeah.
So, Sideshow, what you got?
Yeah, I think that it's really difficult, actually, when you look at the map pool that we've got going on, when we start going towards Ilios and Dorado, that's normally where Pine is fielded, and that means that they have more of a one-dimensional style, I feel. I think London will be prepared for that, and they'll be able to capitalize. So even though they look like strengths for New York, I think they might get turned into weaknesses.